everyone, it's Nina. Thanks for joining me today for a new video. I'm going to be sharing 3 different projects that I made with Simon Says Stamps February 2023 card kit. All the cards that I'm going to be sharing today feature a few different techniques and many of the kit contents, so I hope you're inspired and let's jump on in. I wanted to first create an edge-to-edge shaker card. I love the Heart and Stars stencil, and I thought I would start off by ink blending the background using some Simon Says Stamp Positively Saturated ink. I'm going to tape the stencil in place with some very low tack tape and then start bringing in my colors. I chose 4 different shades, teal, purple, pink, and orange, and I'm going to work in a radial pattern. I'm making sure to blend each of these colors with the next so that way the transition's really smooth. The one thing I did want to make sure though was that I didn't blend the orange and the blue too much. I didn't want to get too much of a brown in between those 2 colors. So I was very careful to make sure to blend very well with the orange and pink, but then very lightly come into the blue. And so that didn't give me as harsh of a brown transition, which I really like how that turned out. We're going to soften this background by going back over each of the colored areas with the corresponding ink color to create a tone-on-tone effect. So I've added orange in one corner, pink over the pink areas, and again making sure to try to blend all these colors with the next so we have a nice seamless transition. And then finally I'll go back through with the purple and blue. Again, making sure not to go into the orange with that blue color too far. So now that our background is complete, I'm going to splatter it with some shimmer mist. This is an optional step, but I do like the shimmery effect that this gives. I love splatters, so adding this makes my heart happy, and I love the added shimmer. So we're going to let that dry. Once it did, I'm going to pull out the plastic from the stamp set packaging. We're going to turn this plastic into the pocket for our edge-to-edge shaker. So on the back side of our ink blended panel, I'm going to cover all 4 sides with some Terrific tape. All 4 sides need to be covered with adhesive, and then 3 sides of the adhesive release paper needs to be removed. Don't remove the release paper on that 4th edge just yet. We're going to fold over the edges of that plastic around our background panel so that way the adhesive holds those edges in, and that's going to form our pocket. Of course, that last edge where we did not fold over the plastic into the not yet exposed adhesive, that's where we're going to fill it up with our shaker bits. So I've pulled out a couple different sequin mixes and I'm dumping a whole bunch in, creating a very full and sparkly shaker. Once it's filled, then I can remove that final release paper off of the adhesive and then go ahead and place that last edge over top of it. Any corners that might need to be chopped off, go ahead and do so. And here we go. We mix it all up and we've got this awesome sparkly shaker. Now speaking of sparkle, there are some deco sheets from Tim Holtz. These are glitter adhesive backed papers. And they work best when you lay it onto another piece of cardstock. Because they are so thin and delicate, it's very hard to get a clean die cut without adhering it onto some cardstock first. So I adhered that deco sheet onto some white cardstock and then die cut it with the Fancy Love die that's included in the kit. I also cut the shadow layer from the white cardstock. For a holographic and rainbowy effect, I'm going to pull out some of this shattered rainbow foil from Thermoweb. This is such a pretty color. It's not part of the kit, and the sentiment strip that I'm using is also not part of the kit, but both of these pieces I thought would pair well together to create a deco foiled sentiment strip. So I have the products that I'm using today, by the way, linked below in the video description, so if you're curious about the foil, the sentiment strips, or any of the other things I'm using, check out the links below in the video or on my blog. Anyway, I foiled that with my mini Mink machine, and here we have this really nice foiled sentiment. It looks so good with our background. And I'm going to just glue my sentiments together. I glued my love greeting onto the shadow with some liquid glue, and then I used some foam squares to attach that onto my edge-to-edge shaker. This is going to get layered in the center, and then our small little Hugs and Kisses sentiment strip I'm going to glue right underneath. Check it out. This card is done. It's sparkly, it's shiny, and it's just perfect. I love how it turned out. Okay, let's move on to card number 2. This one has definitely a holographic theme going on to it. I have this Heart Trio die from Simon Says Stamp. It's not part of the kit. It's actually an older die, but it's a really good one. And I'm die cutting the holographic rainbows cardstock that's included in the kit from this die. I also die cut it from some white so that I could stack these hearts together so that they were just slightly more dimensional than 1 layer thick. So this is going to get glued onto my mini slimline card base. I thought I would do something different and make a mini slimline. I thought this looked fun by mixing a trio of these across the card. Once I glued them all down with some liquid glue, I'm going to trim off any excess. Then with those excess pieces, I'm actually going to fill in any blank areas. So this makes it really simple. You only need to make 3 trio hearts, but then using the leftover pieces, you can fill in those blank spaces, and voila, they look so good. I'm brushing off any stray fibers that might be stuck to my paper with a little sweeper brush, and we're ready to move on to adding some fun treats to pair up with these hearts. These are from the Sweet Days stamp set that's part of the kit, and I'm stamping them onto some hammer mill cardstock with some black ink from Simon Says Stamp. This is going to get colored with Copic markers. I didn't do anything too fancy for the shading. I tried to keep them pretty simple because there's a lot going on this card. So you'll see here I did color a rainbow piece, but in the end I figured out that that was just way too much for my card. So I'll just end up saving that for another card at some point. Once I finish all my coloring, I'm going to go ahead and cut those out with my fine tip scissors. I also heat embossed a sentiment from that same Sweet Days stamp set. I embossed it with white embossing powder onto black cardstock. This is going to look nice and bold on top of our background because we have a lot of bright colors here. I wanted some nice contrast for that greeting. So here we go. We have our sentiment and our candies. Again, I'm not going to use the rainbow piece, but instead I'll use the lollipop, this cute little wrapped candy piece, and then the little heart. So I adhered those down with some foam tape, and then I glued some of these cute dimensional clay hearts from Trinity Stamps. These are really fun and had some really cool colors that matched well with the holographic rainbows cardstock. So I glued those down here and there around my card. Finishing things up, I just added a few glossy accent highlights in certain areas and then used Simon Says Stamp Unicorn Dust Glitter to add the little glitter touch on all of those areas where I added adhesive. So that's going to add just a nice little sparkle to those candies to make them extra special. So we have completed 2 cards. So let's move on to the final one, which is actually probably the simplest of all, but I think it's really cute because we're going to utilize some of the pattern paper in the kit. I know a lot of you always ask what to do with pattern paper. Well, here's an idea for you. This pattern paper sheet is super cute with these hearts, but it has a white background. What does that mean? It means you could ink blend on it. So I'm going to ink blend over top of these hearts. It mutes them a little bit, but it actually creates this really cool gradient. So I have white at the top, orange in the middle, and pink at the bottom. Looks really, really pretty. So I use Simon Says Stamp inks for that, and then I die cut that Fancy Love from that same deco foil sheet. I covered a piece of white cardstock with the deco foil sheet and then die cut it with the Fancy Love. So we'll have this really pretty greeting here on top of this red heart. That heart was the highlight heart. It's actually a newer die from Simon Says Stamp and really great for Valentine's Day or love cards all year round. I die cut it from some red cardstock. That's going to look really good against the glittery gold sentiment, and that red also ties in well with the background. I used liquid glue to attach my sentiment to the shadow layer, and then I'll pop that up with some foam tape over top of the heart. To finish things off, I pulled out this little sentiment strip that says always and forever, and I glued a few clear confetti sequins around my card to keep it nice and simple. I wanted the background to kind of be the showstopper, and I love how this looks. Well, there you have it. 3 different ways that I use Simon Says Stamp's February 2023 card kit to make 3 completely different cards. I hope you were inspired by the ideas that I shared today. Don't forget, you can utilize a lot of these ideas with products you probably already have in your stash. So try them out. Let me know what you think. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments below. I do try to answer all the comments I get on YouTube as quickly as possible. And I thank you so much for watching today's video. I will be back very soon with more to share with you all. But until then, I hope you have a fabulous day, and thanks for watching.